As we approach the end of Generation 8, I thought it would be a great time to reflect on some games that the PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch have brought us. It's been unquestionably a great generation that has offered something for everyone, from stellar AAA titles, realistic sport games, frantic battle royale releases, and cardboard. Seriously though, what the But this video isn't about the best games. No, this video is about the most disappointing games of the generation. And why? Well, in all honesty, I'm a miserable twat. So today I'm going to rank them. These are my top 3 most disappointing games of Generation 8. So just a quick disclaimer and a trigger warning before I get a ton of hate off people. These games aren't bad games. In fact, they are actually half decent at the core, but they are a disappointment in the respect that they didn't live up to the expectations of fans, or they weren't as good as previous titles. So, let's get stuck in. Oh boy, this one hurt me. You see, I'm a big fan of the Arkham games, and after some excellent games in the franchise, with Arkham Asylum being the particular highlight, I think it would be fair to assume that the new game on the latest console would be phenomenal. I, for one, believe that it would be. So much so that I skipped on down to game in high spirits on my birthday and purchased the limited edition Batman PS4. I do have to say that I was blown away by the graphics, which improved on what was already beautiful looking games on the previous generation consoles. The story and characters, however, are extremely weak. So we know that Batman isn't known for his personality, but with characters such as Joker and Penguin to bounce off, everything just fits together nicely. So it seems such a strange idea to have an anonymous antagonist who hid behind a disguised voice. The real kick in the balls for the story, however, is that you are chasing Scarecrow in the game, and near the end you finally get a boss fight with him. Kinda. Well, cutscene. Yes, a cutscene. One other aspect of the game was the inclusion of the Batmobile, which normally would be an awesome addition. However, Rocksteady managed to fuck it up and make the Batmobile tedious and just downright annoying. What's worse is that there's a really heavy emphasis on using the Batmobile, despite the controls being clunky and the drone battles you have being dull and repetitive. Which leads me on nicely to the fighting in general. I'm not sure what had changed, but for some reason in Arkham Knight, you got hit a lot easier than in previous games. This could be down to there being more enemies that attack at once, and more enemies that carry weapons. Most of the boss fights, though, are tank battles, and it's just incredibly underwhelming. The only real boss fight is against the Riddler, and even then you spend most of it fighting his goons. So in summary, Arkham Knight is a lovely looking game, with a confusing story and a crap reveal of a boring generic villain. There's forced repetitive tank battles which involve nothing more than strafe and shoot, and worst of all, no real satisfying conclusion to what was an engaging story told by 2 previous stellar titles. Let's ignore Arkham Origins. Other than that though, it's alright. I recently reviewed Pokemon Shield and praised its visuals and settings, but even the most hardened Pokemon fan will admit that they expected a lot more from the latest installment. So, for me, it's a very paint-by-numbers release, added to a very tired franchise. It's certainly not a bad game. The setting used some beautiful artwork, and it really captured the essence of British culture, as the game takes heavy influence from the UK. The new Pokemon on a whole were better than recent generations' editions. The new sheep Pokemon Wooloo and the corgi Pokemon Yamper are really relevant to the game's setting and are designed in a simple yet charming style. Unfortunately, however, its biggest flaw is that it essentially uses the same gameplay as the 3DS titles, and that's just plain lazy and unforgivable for a game released on the Switch, which has a lot more power and capabilities than the 3DS. The battle animations were a particular disappointment, with it using the same animations from nearly 10 years ago. One new feature to the game, however, is Dynamaxing. which is a process of your Pokemon becoming bigger, more powerful, and more defensive for 3 turns. Yeah, that's it. It adds very little to the game, as your Dynamax Pokemon could still be taken out fairly easy with a super effective move. Another addition to the game was the Wild area, which is, I suppose, like the Safari Zone on previous games, but offers more in the way of Pokemon and items. It's a really cool area, to be fair, and you see all these amazing Pokemon to catch, and it's just what us Pokemon fans have been screaming out for. Only, we wanted the full game as such, not just a little area. So what could they have done to make this release the best yet? Well, I would have loved to see an overhaul to the battle animation. The mechanic of the game is fine, as Pokemon is, in essence, a JRPG. But why not do the animations in the style of Pokemon Stadium and go full on with the battles? Surely the Switch could cope with that. And finally, just make the game open world with the Pokemon wandering around the whole world rather than having a wild zone and limiting certain Pokemon to particular areas. Make it more in the style of Pokemon Go, the mobile version that is, because it would make the game feel really fresh and also give the fans what we actually want. As I said earlier, the game is alright, and it definitely improves on the last releases, but not by much. It just feels like a lazy release that recycles elements of older games and adds very little in the way of new and exciting features. And as a fan of Pokemon, I can honestly say that if you had played Sword and Shield, you have played every 3DS Pokemon game. And number one, then, is the game that I take absolutely no pleasure in ranking as the most disappointing game of this generation. But honestly, Fallout 4 was a major step backwards for what was an incredibly popular series at the time. Now, I am a massive Fallout fan, and having really enjoyed both Fallout 3 and New Vegas, I was hyped. I mean, I was more hyped for the Fallout 4 release than I was for the birth of my own kids. Alright, maybe not, but I was definitely more hyped for Fallout 4 than my wedding. So after pre-ordering, queuing for half an hour, and getting conned into buying the strategy guard and a pair of socks and a crappy candle, I was all set for an epic post-apocalyptic adventure. Sadly, however, right from the start, you could see that something was off with the game. I will just say that, as with other games on this list, Fallout 4 is still a solid game that you can find hours of fun in. However, I will start with the graphics. So whilst the graphics aren't worse than the previous titles, they aren't much better. And normally that wouldn't be too much of an issue. And as the last two games were on a previous generation, that's not good enough really. Fallout 4 also uses the Creation Engine, which was developed off the back of Morrowind, a game released in 2002. So as you can imagine, by the time that Fallout 3 and New Vegas was developed, the game engine was creaking under the strain of the more modern releases, which were riddled in bugs. Unsurprisingly, Fallout 4 suffered with bugs too, some reportedly being game-breaking. Amazingly though, that wasn't the worst part of the game. Let's start with the plot then. So remember Fallout 3, in which you had to go on a journey through a dangerous post-apocalyptic world and find your father? Yeah? Well, in Fallout 4, you have to find your son Sean. Okay. So Fallout New Vegas, sandwiched between Fallout 3 and 4, despite its numerous game-breaking bugs, was wonderfully written. The story offered some really memorable quests and characters, all whilst giving you the total freedom of the game to carve your own destiny. But surely Fallout 4 built on that, right? Nope. Fallout 4 is barely an RPG game at all. Now, I can hear people raging at the statement, but allow me to explain. So having a game which allows you to create a character and spend points on skills is not a role-playing game. A role-playing game should allow you the freedom to follow your own path in the world, allow you to make critical decisions, all while telling a story that you can change and manipulate. Because, after all, you are role-playing a character, And in doing so, you have to become the character on the screen. Much like when you're reading a good novel. But sadly, Fallout 4 was just way too linear. For example then, when you first meet that annoying prick Preston Garvey, you have to complete the quest he gives you, as each option results in you accepting the quest anyway. Now compare that with New Vegas. The game starts with you, a courier, getting mugged, shot in the head, then you are left to die in an open grave. You eventually catch up with your would-be murderers, and you are given the choice of revenge, forgiving, or even working with them, and each decision takes you on a different journey. That's not an isolated mission either, as there's other examples, like when you discover the cannibals at a casino, you can choose to either expose them, which results in a big gunfight, or keep their foul crimes against nature to yourself. All this adds to a wonderful and deep role-playing experience, something Fallout 4 fails to provide. Something else that is noticeable in its absence is the lack of any relatable characters. This becomes more apparent as you advance in the game, and you realise that you don't know much about your companions. But then, at the same time, you couldn't actually give a toss anyway. Honestly, the NPCs are boring, and your replies are so generic, and for the most part, just one-word answers. The only character in the game who is interesting and actually has some charisma is Valentine, and he's a bloody android. So what are the new features then? Well, the main new feature is the settlement building. Now, this isn't really for me. However, if you think about it, in real life, settlements would be built as kind of safe havens, strength in numbers and all that. But in-game, it just provides a distraction. And especially when they are under attack, it pulls you away from whatever mission you're already on. To ensure everyone in the settlements are happy and safe, you need to build and install many different structures, furniture, machines, and even grow food. This means that whilst you are exploring the wastelands, you need to be picking up crap like crystal decanters and toasters that just weigh you down. For me, it just seemed an unnecessary addition to a game that is in desperate need of a good story more than anything. As already mentioned, it isn't a bad game, but considering just how good Fallout New Vegas is, Fallout 4 should have ironed out all the bugs and created an all-time classic, not a mediocre game with a poor story and boring characters. And that's my list, guys. So, do you agree? Or am I talking out my arse again? Let me know in the comments section below, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Thanks for watching.